Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Longing. I'm currently recording this one quite early because I'm going to be busy this evening. So, let's get reading anyway. We're going to be continuing to read The Golden Age by Kenneth Grahame. So, let's get going. The Blue Room had in prehistoric times been added to by taking us in a superfluous passage, and so not only had the advantage of two doors, but enabled us to get to the head of the stairs without passing the chamber wherein our dragonant lay couched. It was rarely occupied, except when a casual uncle came down for the night. We entered in noiseless file, the room being plunged in darkness, except for a bright strip of moonlight on the floor, across which we must pass for our exit. On this, our leading lady chose to pause, seizing the opportunity to study the hang of her new dressing gown. Greatly satisfied thereat, she proceeded, after the feminine fashion, to peacock and to pose, pacing a minuet down the moonlit patch with an imaginary partner. This was too much for Edward's histrionic instincts, and after a moment's pause he drew his single stick, and with flourishes meet for the occasion, strode onto the stage. A struggle ensued on approved lines, at the end of which Selina was stabbed slowly and with unction, and her corpse borne from the chamber by the ruthless cavalier. The rest of us rushed after in a clump, with capers and gesticulations of delight. The special charm of the performance lying in the necessity for its being carried out with the dumbest of dumb shows. Once out on the dark landing, the noise of the storm without told us we had exaggerated the necessity for silence. So, grasping the tails of each other's nightgowns, even as alpine climbers rope themselves together in perilous places, we fared stoutly down the staircase moraine, and across the grim glacier of the hall, to where a faint glimmer from the half-open door of the drawing-room beckoned to us like friendly hostile lights. Entering, we found that our thriftless seniors had left the sound red heart of a fire, easily coaxed into a cheerful blaze, and biscuits, a plateful, smiled at us in an encouraging sort of way, together with the halves of a lemon, already once squeezed but still suckable. The biscuits were righteously shared, the lemon segments passed from mouth to mouth, and as we squatted round the fire, its genial warmth consoling our unclad limbs, we realized that so many nocturnal perils had not been braved in vain. "It's a funny thing," said Edward as we chatted, "how I hate this room in the daytime. It always means having your face washed and your hair brushed and talking silly company talk. But tonight it's really quite jolly. Looks different somehow." "I never can make out," I said, "what people come here to tea for. They can have their own tea at home if they like. They're not poor people, with jam and things, and drink out of their saucer, and suck their fingers and enjoy themselves. But they come here from a long way off, and sit up straight with their feet off the bars of their chairs, and have one cup, and talk the same sort of stuff every time." Selina sniffed disdainfully. "You don't know anything about it," she said. "In society you have to call on each other. It's the proper thing to do." "Pooh, you're not in society," said Edward politely. "And what's more, you never will be." "Yes, I shall, some day," retorted Selina, "but I shan't ask you to come and see me, so there." "Wouldn't come if you did," growled Edward. "Well, you won't get the chance," rejoined our sister, claiming her right of the last word. There was no heat about these little amenities, which made up, as we understood it, the art of polite conversation. "I don't like society people," put in Harold from the sofa, where he was sprawling at full length, a sight the daylight hours would have blushed to witness. "There were some of them here this afternoon when you two had gone off to the station." "Oh, and I found a dead mouse on the lawn, and I wanted to skin it, but I wasn't sure I knew how by myself. And they came out into the garden and patted my head. I wish people wouldn't do that. And one of them asked me to pick her a flower. Don't know why she couldn't pick it herself, but I said, 'All right, I will if you'll hold my mouse.' But she screamed and threw it away, and Augustus, the cat, got it, and ran away with it. I believe it was really his mouse all the time, because he'd been looking about as if he had lost something. So I wasn't angry with him, but what she did. But what did she want to throw away my mouse for? You have to be careful with mice, reflected Edward. They're such slippery things. Do you remember we were playing with a dead mouse once on the piano, and the mouse was Robinson Crusoe, and the piano was the island, and somehow Crusoe slipped down inside the island into its works, and we couldn't get him out, though we tried, rakes and all sorts of things, till the tuna came, and that wasn't a week after. And then... Here Charlotte, who had been nodding solemnly, fell over into the fender, and we realised that the wind had dropped at last, and the house was lapped in a great stillness. Our vacant beds seemed to be calling to us imperiously, and we were all glad when Edward gave the signal for retreat. At the top of the staircase, Harold unexpectedly turned mutinous, insisting on his right to slide down the banisters in a free country. Circumstances did not allow of argument. I suggested frogs marching instead, and frogs marched he accordingly was, the procession passing solemnly across the moonlit blue room, with Harold horizontal and limply submissive. Snug in bed at last, I was just slipping off into slumber when I heard Edward explode with chuckle and snort. "By Jove," he said, "I forgot all about it. The new tutor's sleeping in the blue room." "Lucky he didn't wake up and catch us," I grunted drowsily. And both of us, without another thought on the matter, sank into well-earned repose. Next morning we came down to breakfast, braced to grapple with fresh adversity, but were surprised to find our garrulous friend of the previous day, he was late in making his appearance, strangely silent and apparently preoccupied. Having polished off our porridge, we ran out to feed the rabbits, explaining to them that a beast of a tutor would prevent their enjoying so much of our society as formerly. On returning to the house at the fated hour appointed for study, we were thunderstruck to see the station cart disappearing down the drive, freighted with our new acquaintance. Aunt Eliza was brutally uncommunicative, but she was overheard to remark casually that she thought the man must be a lunatic. In this theory we were only too ready to concur, dismissing thereafter the whole matter from our minds. Some weeks later it happened that Uncle Thomas, while paying us a flying visit, produced from his pocket a copy of the latest weekly Psyche or something, a journal of the unseen, and proceeded laboriously to rid himself of much incomprehensible humour, apparently at our expense. We bore it patiently, with the forced grin demanded by convention, anxious to get at the source of inspiration, which it presently appeared lay in a paragraph circumstantially describing our modest and humdrum habitation. Case 3, it began. The following particulars were communicated by a young member of the Society of undoubted probity and earnestness, and are a chronicle of actual and recent experience. A fairly accurate description of the house followed, with details that were unmistakable, but to this there succeeded a flood of meaningless drivel about apparitions, nightly visitants, and the like, writ in a manner betokening a disordered mind, coupled with a feeble imagination. The fellow was not even original. All the old material was there: the storm at night, the haunted chamber, the white lady, the murder reenacted, and so on, already worn threadbare in many a Christmas number. No one was able to make head or tail of the stuff, or of its connection with our quiet mansion. And yet Edward, who had always suspected the man, persisted in maintaining that our tutor, of a brief span, was, somehow or other, at the bottom of it. And that actually quite neatly brings us up to the end of the episode. Oh, would you excuse me? Oh. There goes an errant yawn. But yes, thank you very much. We are going to end the episode there. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon or night. No matter what time of day it is, I hope you all have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow for more of the longing. Goodbye.